Hello, friend!
Hello, and welcome to Discovery's 14.3, apparently.
With Peter and Anne-Marie. So, we have a bit of...
Previously on Star Trek Discovery.
Yes, the Ready Room controversy, which has raged across the internet.
Or not.
Ready? Well, to an extent it has, actually. There have been other people going, what's going on with this huge Ready Room? And not mystery, but the intrigue was deepened by the fact that there was a picture of Jonathan Frakes on the captain's chair. Behind him a door was open, which used to lead to Lorca's Ready Room. It's now a science lab. So it's not even in the same place. Which explains why it's bigger, at least. So it's not fitting into the same space. It's elsewhere on the ship. But of course then it fails to be a ready room, because how ready is the captain if he's several rooms away or possibly even decks away for all we know?
So it's the captain's office then?
Yes, basically, yes. He's got an office and not a ready room.
Okay.
I
think an unready room.
An unready room, exactly. Somebody, I think it might have been Andy, suggested that maybe this is going towards the original series where they didn't have ready rooms. So I suppose you could argue that. And let's face it, there's in tonight's episode, there's traces of them trying to get back on track to things how we're used to them looking, shall we say. Anyway, more of that later. We've heard from Brad.
And he writes, "Hello, Orgs. Long-time listener, first-time feedbacker. I've been meaning to feedback for ages, but life keeps getting in the way. Just had a couple of points I wanted to feedback on from recent episodes. On the age of the stained glass from New Eden, the whole ages thing could work if the glass was over 200 years old and then reshaped.
That would work if it was like ordinary stained glass where it's all in different panels, but it was all printed of something else. I mean, you could argue, well, of course, the technology is more futuristic by the World War III, so perhaps they could do stained glass that way, reusing old glass and making it look... But anyway, it kind of fails at being stained glass to me if it's not individual panels. So, but I'm old school.
He says, the way I read the Saru minisode was that Saru's tribe were almost domesticated Kelpians being protected by the monolith. So they'd still have all the nervousness of prey animals, but without the threat.
All right, so they're kind of like a force field around them, keeping the nasty other animals away.
In order that other people can
harvest. the price of that being they get harvested. You could perhaps that will get explained later on.
You could, but that still doesn't explain why on that planet Saru says he stopped being frightened for the first time because you're living in tents and playing board games.
If you think about it, because he's still frightened. It's just he's not frightened of the prey animals. He's frightened of when the bell rings or whatever it was, and they're all called to find out who's going to be.
No, he said he was frightened the whole time. He spent his entire life, every moment, every second, being frightened. That's what he said. It doesn't work if you're going to play board games.
No, the board games were a silly thing, wasn't it? Yes.
So, no, I'm afraid it still doesn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Putting my Enterprise fanboy hat on, it's not actually the first time Christianity is mentioned in Star Trek.
Nope.
It comes up in Enterprise, in the episode Cold Front.
Yeah, I think we've referenced that in the past at some point. Yeah.
I'm terrible for episode names.
Uh-huh.
Helpfully, I've just rewatched it as part of my watch/rewatch all of the Trek. The crew meet a group of religious pilgrims on the way to observe an astrological phenomenon they see as sacred. During the course of the episode, Phlox tells Archer that he studied a number of Earth religions whilst on Earth, including taking Mass at St. Peter's Square.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we might have referenced it during our Deep Space Nine coverage, if I remember rightly, but yeah.
Okay. Overall, on Discovery's second season, I'm impressed so far. I wasn't going to watch it at first, and it was only after a friend recommended it I thought I'd give it a go. The first series really wound me up with its change for change's sake attitude, amongst other things, and if I hadn't said I watched the first series to the end, I'd have quit halfway through. If you're interested, my thoughts on the episode so far. The episode Brother. Okay, you're off to a good start, a good amount of action, and some nice interplay between the characters, especially from characters who previously haven't really done a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. Although I'm still not sold on Burnham, I definitely want to see more of Saru, Tilly, Stamets, Detmer and Oa-Shekin. As for the new characters, I quite like Reno. I hope she sticks around. Pike is fairly faithful to the characters from the Cage/Menagerie, so no complaints there.
Yeah, still no sign of Jet Reno, and this is the third episode, so she appeared in the first one and then 2 episodes without it. It seems a bit pointless introducing her, really.
Story-wise, the MacGuffin for the series has me interested, but my only concern is Deus Ex Spock. The flashback to Burnham's childhood, again not sold, she feels forced in. She'd have been far better not being Spock's foster sister. I also like the sprinkling of references like the Vulcan bells. Warning, incoming nerd gush. Oh my god, the redesign of the Enterprise is beautiful.
Yes.
Probably the best since the refit, and may even beat Mad Koi Fishes? I don't know what that is.
No, I've got no idea even.
Seriously tempted to pick up the Eagle Moss model of it.
Mm.
Warning, incoming nerd rant. What was with the turbolift scene? It just made the Discovery seem weirdly huge.
Yeah, welcome to the fairground ride that is the inside of the Discovery.
Yeah. Overall, a good start, and it convinced me to give the rest of the season a go, but it's not quite dispelled my scepticism. New Eden. Honestly, I'm impressed. This felt like Trek. The story was solid and strongly linked to the Ark plot. I'm really starting to like Pike. He's shaping up as a great captain.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the stuff with Tilly was great, and Saru. I can't wait for him to take the centre chair. The stuff with Stamets was beautifully done, and I really felt for him. I'm even slowly warming to Burnham, although I still can't see her as a bit of a Mary Sue. She's certainly losing her Sue-ness, but we're not there yet. Maybe Mary Sue is the wrong term, but I felt in the first series that she suffered from see how cool this character is syndrome.
Again, your main character, you're going to do that, otherwise nobody will invest in them. I mean, that's the whole point of heroes, isn't it?
He says, I don't have a frame of reference here, Donnie, but you might.
Okay.
He says, the best way I can describe her is comparing her to Kato Sicarius from 40k.
No, sorry. No idea.
Okay, so it's a character who comes across as more of a fan-made self-insert who took some serious work to fix. The story was, as I said, solid, and whilst we've seen the concept of people's mers passed on other worlds before, in Trek, Paradise Syndrome, the 37s in Voyager, Enterprise's North Star, the Ark gave it a nice twist. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed my ramblings, and I look forward to the next show.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thanks for getting in touch.
Thank you.
We've also heard from Purry on last week's episode, which was...
New Eden.
Thank you. Hey, you're remembering the episode titles now.
Only because it was only last week. Don't ask me in a few weeks' time.
Okay.
Hello, Args. Purry here to talk about Discovery Season 2, Episode 2. I've really got to start taking a note or Googling these episode titles. Very unprofessional of me. So anyway, this was a really good one. Thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It had a very old Star Trek feel to it, but with some nice new twists. So, for example, being down to a mysterious planet of humans who now all worship a sort of collective religion. And surprisingly, when Burnham starts going a wee bit on about science, if I'm honest, but starts talking about science and the guy who secretly tends all the technology, when they're found, no one's burned at the stake. At no point does Pike have to make a big speech about how their gods aren't real and how reason's the way. Instead, well, the guy who doesn't believe Earth is doomed and vanished and that they're the last outpost of humanity gets to find out. I actually thought they were going to take him. I thought it was going to be basically you want to go and you want to rejoin Earth, that's fine. Everyone else gets to stay here. They could probably say he was ascended by the Red Angel. I'll give you this really, really freaky battery in replace for that helmet cam. It's a bit weird, as you guys said in the cast. But overall, it just had that classic sort of rollicking Trek adventure. We had Tilly with her giant rock. And she was just fantastic in this. You really can't get past the sort of absolute joy of the character. It was probably on the second appearance of the imaginary friend that I thought, Tilly's the only one who can see her. Because I suddenly had to think back to that first scene in sickbay when everyone else came in, and it was suddenly, hang on, where did she go? And in this day and age, I mean, if that was classic Trek, you'd assume bad continuity or someone forgot about it, but this day and age, that's usually deliberate. We also, like I said, there's sort of things that speculate on that. So an interesting one that actually one of my friends came up with was, did the Rock react to Tilly? Because if you remember back in last season, she got a tiny bit of mycelium on her. And I reckon that's going to be some way significant in the future. Whether it's the Rock talking to her, whether it's mycelium, we don't know. But I'd say mycelium because there's that connection to the dead. And I wonder if that's kind of the idea of how the mycelium network speaks to people is through their dead loved ones, which could be an interesting plot twist. Or not plot twist, but at least plot line. But yeah, overall, good stuff. I can't really say enough nice things about this. It's humour, it had pathos, it had a more mature look at religion than Trek's managed in a while. It wasn't too preachy. I mean, I thought Burnham maybe went a bit hard in the science, but I could kind of see her point of view if she's been brought up in no one tried to come up with a scientific explanation. I did try to explain the church, which you had trouble explaining the stained glass windows. I thought maybe it had been converted some point in the future before it got scooped up into a kind of multi-faith place, because that would also explain why they had a copy of a whole load of different holy books to cobble together into one big volume. But they did manage to make the Red Angel a stained glass window. So that means that either they redid stained glass, or that luckily everyone who hid in that church of all the different religions happened to have a copy of each of their holy books with them. So it either opens this plot hole even bigger, or perhaps closes it a little. It's hard to tell, but yeah, overall really good stuff, so do keep up the good work. I always look forward to the podcast, and I'll hopefully feed back in the next episode. Late as usual, but I'll feed back. Until then, bye for now.
Bye, sir.
Bye.
Late is fine.
Yeah. Well spotted with the...
Oh, well done, friend of Purry, yes.
Yes.
Spotted the mycelium debris that got... Yeah, remember back when we saw that, we went, oh, that's going to come up later on, isn't it? And sure enough, it has,
Yes.
which is good.
Yes. I mean, to be fair, I had forgotten until they reminded us, but
Right.
I had forgotten, but yeah. How the mycelium speaks is through dead loved ones. Does that suggest that the last person who was actually kind to Tilly was somebody when she was a teenager?
Oh, that's grim, isn't it?
Because
Yeah.
it's a bit grim if that is the
No, but
case.
Michael's been kind to us since then.
But
so.
Michael isn't dead.
Oh, I see. The last person who's dead. Okay, right, yeah. And yes, it was great that no one was burnt at the stake for their religious beliefs for
Yeah.
a change.
Yeah.
Or at least argued down, browbeaten into thinking otherwise.
And you're right, Burnham is harsh, but I'm beginning to wonder now whether that was her upbringing.
Oh, yeah, and she
Yeah.
pretty much says as much as well, to be fair. Brought up in Vulcan, unless it's, say, their weird religion of logic.
Which is very odd, but anyway, that's not Discovery's fault. Discovery never invented that.
No, it's rolling with it.
And in terms of having one of each religious book, does it close or open a plot hole? I'm not sure that they were completely without resources initially. I think their resources ran out. So I'm wondering whether...
Yeah, but what he's saying is that everybody had to be in the church with their holy books. And let's face it, it doesn't make any sense that people of a religion... I suppose they were just sheltering the nearest building, weren't they? But
Yeah.
just to have all their holy books with them is a bit of a stretch, I guess, but hey-ho.
No, what I'm wondering is, because nobody said how old the holy books were.
Mm-hmm.
So if they had resources in the beginning, could they have reproduced some of them?
Oh, I suppose possibly.
But maybe they're like dodgy copies because people have forgotten some of it.
Yes, possibly.
I'm just as a question. I think that is at least feasible because they don't say these books are however many years old.
Yeah. Alrighty, thank you, Burry.
Thank you.
We now move on to Point of Light, which I guess is a lot... I'm trying to think how that title relates to what happens in this episode. Well, it's the Point of Light that gets into Tilly, I suppose, is it?
I don't know.
Yeah. But it's not a bizarre title, it's just trying to figure out what it's referring to, but I think that's what it is.
They use the same things as David Bowie used at one point.
That's taking bits of newspaper and you putting lyrics together using random snippets.
Yeah, that's how they're coming up with episode
I think
titles.
it's a little more relevant than that, so anyway.
Report to the transporter room, Commander. Welcome to Vulcan Ambassador Borden.
Yes, sir. Deck 4. Energize.
Hi, Commander.
Amanda.
Please don't react. Spock needs our help. I could only turn to you.
Tilly is taking part in a half marathon around the ship, which for some reason involves flashing the lights everywhere the runners go, which is a tad inconvenient for other crew members. Burnham's like, what the hell's going on? Tilly runs through May, who confirms no one else can see her. Despite chatting for a while, Tilly unconvincingly manages to catch up with and beat the other runners, who must have got miles ahead at that point, but no,
Yeah.
they're just round the corner. Were they just waiting for her there or something? Oh, that's not fair. Let's wait for Tilly. Oh, the book has gone and overtaken us and won. What a git. On the bridge, they've detected a small ship approaching, and they do that irritating thing where they swing the camera around from station to station, making me feel giddy.
Oh, they
all the way through this episode, the direction is terrible.
Gave me motion sickness, and I don't normally have that.
Yeah.
Well, no, that's not true. I do get seasick specifically, and I think that's what it did. Is it made me feel seasick?
Just keep the camera still, you idiots. Yeah. Don't have to move it around to make it seem action-packed. There's plenty of action going on. Yeah. Anyway, this turns out to be Sarek's ship, and yeah, sure enough, it's that Vulcan design, which is good. But it's got Amanda on board, who says that Spock needs their help. We later find out that she hasn't been allowed to contact with her son, so she's stolen his medical records and needs Michael to decrypt them. Woohoo! On Kronos, presumably, we're never actually told, but on the basis that we've got, like, council scenes and stuff here, I guess it must be Kronos. And certainly the buildings look in that
the red,
style.
orange and yellow stained glass. I think we've seen that before, haven't we?
Anyway, we get a nice CGI palace from the outside, which we see from various angles, along with a sort of city in the background. And it's sort of built into a rock face, which is nice. And the sets are pretty good as well. Lots of flames. They do like their flames,
they
Klingons,
do.
in this series,
Yes.
don't they? But yeah, there's plenty of smoke as well, which you'd expect. And you look at the ships, they're always smoke-filled as well.
And they're looking at a D7.
Yes!
I like it.
Yes, we have a proper D7 this time. Quite what the D7 we saw in the last series actually was, because it clearly wasn't one, but they called it one. But yeah, here we have the future of Klingon design. Excellent. We're going for something classic. Yeah. As I say, we seem to be rolling back. And also the designs of the Klingon themselves seem a little more what we're familiar with. Including L'Rell, who's had... that's not the same face mask she had in the first season.
They remind me more of first season Next Gen Klingons. So they're not like you see in Deep Space Nine or later Next Gen, where they're with lots of very pronounced ridges.
Yes, they're more sort of pointy ridges, aren't they? To begin with, yeah, which is fine. That's good.
So that to me, that's how they seem most close to it. And they're still recognisably the same as previous seasons.
Yeah.
But they're less messed up.
Yes, they're obviously dragging it back to how, as I say, not how they're supposed to look in the original series, because nobody wants that.
No.
But how they're supposed to look in Next Generation, which for us is a sort of classic design of Klingon.
Yeah.
And obviously a bit of variation over time is fine. It's just what we had in the first season was such a break. And the reason why it was such a break, of course, it was just they were disguising Shazad Latif so that we wouldn't guess that he was Vok all along. So, hey-ho. Let's move on from that. Although it doesn't feel like we're moving on at the moment because there's an awful lot of Klingons in this story. It feels like a season 1 story in some ways. Oh, and they've got hair now as well, which is a good addition, I think. Although I'm not a big fan of L'Rell's ball gown thing that she wears throughout this story. It's a bit weird.
But didn't Azepbur wear weird shit, though?
Hers had, like, leather padding and stuff.
But she had a weird shit thing on her head, though, didn't she?
She did have a weird shit thing on her head, yes, but the rest of her costume was more logically Klingon than what looks like somebody who's hosting a Klingon Tupperware party.
I think that might be
Klingon Tupperware party, make a note of that, yeah. Anyway, the voices are a little clearer as well. I think they've changed the teeth, which is good news.
Although L'Rell still seems to have the teeth in, and some of them do.
They've still got teeth in, but they're not quite as impenetrable as they used to be, though.
No, but some of them do sound worse than others, and I'm wondering whether it's a partial change, possibly done deliberately.
Yeah. And we also see... Now, I don't know whether to call him Vok or Ash at this point. It's a bit of a confusion, is it? Because he's kind of saying, I am Vok, but he's obviously in human form, and there's still plenty of Ash there, so... I shall probably just alternate when I refer to him. But anyway, he's got a great big bushy beard now, which is a good look. Awesome. L'Rell's getting some jip for having a human as a consort. And challenged by Cole's old man. Remember Cole, who was the main antagonist, I guess, before all the head paint stuff. Well, this is his dad, called Cole Shah. And he's played by exactly the same actor who played Cole, Kenneth Mitchell.
Right.
Mitchell! He's still wearing the divisive face paint, which Ash tries to wipe off and gets it all stuck on his fingers, which becomes a plot point, bizarrely.
I thought they was going for a Macbeth route, and he can't get the blood.
Yes, because he's washing it in bowls and stuff. That's what I initially thought as well, but that's not what it turns out to be. Because it's not blood, after all.
No.
Although maybe it is, actually thinking about it.
I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, inking themselves with blood seems quite likely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, Ash is complaining that no one accepts him as being Vok anymore, which surely perhaps a bit of plastic surgery might help him, because if they can do it one way, they can probably do it the other, can't they?
Well, it nearly killed him one way, so they can't...
But that was because they were chopping loads of bits off. Presumably adding bits back on again wouldn't be so bad.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
In his mammoth ready room, seriously, Pike must be compensating for something, Michael and Amanda try and persuade him to break into the medical records. He contacts a colleague on Starbase 5, who chides him for still using screens rather than holo technology. So presumably that's a fad that comes back from time to time.
Wearing your 3D glasses.
Yeah. Apparently Spock is now wanted for murder, having killed 3 of his doctors. He feels being obviously lied to, Pike orders Michael to break into the records. In private with Burnham, Amanda concedes Spock may have murdered due to being in a compromised psychological state. She blames herself for not showing any emotion around him. They find images of the angel which Spock drew, and it's apparently something he saw when he was a boy. This whole thing about Spock being messed up kind of works, and would explain his grumpy behaviour in the first story of this season. Because, let's face it, he doesn't really get sort of peace and balance of his two halves of his character until around about Star Trek 2, so that's okay. Ash hails Michael to tell her that if L'Rell falls, the chance of peace goes with her. And there's clearly a lot that they're not able to talk to each other about. It's one of those conversations.
Like
yeah, it's good. That's effective. It's a relationship we'll obviously no doubt see more of. Tilly is now taking part in shadow exercises, which sounds really cool, but it just means you're hanging out with one of the bridge officers. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, she's forming a shadow tribute band.
Yes.
Anyway, it involves officer candidates hanging out with bridge officers, and she's going to be shadowing Pike, who suggests randomly marrying some people, which is a nice idea. Hey, I'm captain, I can do that. Let's do it. But May's still a distraction, and Tilly kind of has a meltdown and quits. We see in the background 2 of the hemorrhoid head aliens.
And Linus.
And Linus is back. Yay! Apparently the hemorrhoid head alien we saw in the first series was called Osunulus, apparently.
Right.
Oh, and we see Screenface again, who I don't think we've seen since the pilot, because the Screenface was aboard Shenzhou. You know what I mean? The big helmet with a screen on the front.
No.
Oh, okay, I'll show you a picture later on.
Okay.
L'Rell's uncle, who's called Ujili, that's not a great name, has been spying on Ash, and when he challenges him over it, Ujili reveals that there is a son of Vok, who is not the most convincing prop ever. It has to be said.
No.
Looks very fake. Whether they've got a baby and then put CGI over the top of it, because putting makeup on babies is a bit difficult.
They can do some, but so there was a...
Literally, they just put a bit.
Yeah, they have with Bajorans put a small little nose on.
Yeah.
So they can put a little bit on, but I reckon they must have done the colour, because he's white. That must be CG colour. They bleached the colour, I think.
It just looks very fake, basically, is the problem.
Yeah.
L'Rell reveals she was preggers before Vok became Ash, and stored the baby ex utero or something in the fridge, maybe? I don't know. And that explains why the baby is so tiny.
Well, it's the equivalent of like an incubator, but whereas we in our current time, the baby has to be born to go in an incubator. What she's implying is that once it became a viable fetus, it then did the rest of it develop. No, not a fridge. It needs to be warm enough, you idiot.
Okay.
Incubators are warm.
Perhaps in the airing cupboard then. Yeah, that's what they did. Anyway, apparently the angel, angel appeared to Spock the night Michael ran away from home, and it told him where she was. Burnham says that in order to protect Spock from the logic extremists who tried to kill her, she did something to hurt him and keep him from wanting to be around her. We're still being teased about what she actually did, though. Amanda then kisses Michael, then says she's the only one who will find her son, and walks out pissed off, which is something of a mixed message, really, but there we are. Ash and L'Rell go to get their baby, only to find him gone, and Ujili hanging dead from the ceiling, very messily. They get a hollow message from Kolshar, who reveals the ink Ash got in his hands was actually a listening device. Eh?
It was a dermal, so it went under the skin. So he rubbed it off to get the device under the skin.
Right, okay.
Well, when you think about how tiny listening devices can be now, and this is so much further into the future.
Okay, so it was a pointy thing that went
under the skin. Because you could... where I think the
implication
is...
was that it was the blood.
There was something in it that went under his skin, but the implication is when you think back to those scenes where he's washing his hands, it's like he can feel there's something there.
All right. Okay. Well, in order to get the baby back, Lorel is told she'll have to step down as Chancellor. And it's all a bit of Game of Thrones, really, isn't it?
It is, yes.
And I thought, like, can't we just move on from the Klingons? We had more than enough of those in the first season, but never mind. Then we get another horrible camera move from horizontal to vertical as Michael gets up to greet Tilly. And he's like, why do you need to do that? That's completely pointless. Come back, Frakes. All is forgiven. Tilly puts seeing May down to the dark matter that hit her. May says she doesn't understand why Tilly's eyes are dripping, and Michael points out that means she's not dealing with anything human or something that's sort of drawing from a consciousness.
Her memories, yeah.
She figures out it's to do with Tilly's proximity to spores, so they're off to see Stamets to get it all explained. Lorel meets with Kolshar and sensibly refuses to deal with him because, as she points out, as soon as she signs the deed of resignation, that's her dead. So that's sensible, at least.
Yeah.
And instead we get...
Fight! I love this. And they get the blood the right colour. It's purpley again.
Purple, yeah.
And it sprays places and it's...
It's a pretty brutal fight, as you would expect with Klingons.
Yeah, I like it.
The only thing I found a bit annoying was that the lightning in the background, it made it sort of strobe occasionally, which I could have done without, but I suppose they were doing that for dramatic reasons, but hey-ho. When they defeat the various minions, they then go for Kolshar, but he uses a bat'leth that zaps and paralyses them both. Quite why he didn't bother using that straight away. Perhaps he didn't want those particular bodyguards anymore, I don't know.
They're a bit crap.
Maybe I was like, let them die, and then I'll move in with a... Yeah, stupid. And not very honourable, it has to be said either, but hey, that's Klingon sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
We know that. Having put Lorel's fingerprint on the deed of resignation, Kolshar is about to execute Vok right in front of her when Georgiou turns up.
Yay!
Splats all the other Klingons with a probe thing, and encases Kolshar in a bubbly force field that floats for some reason. Okay. And then Lorel just finishes him off, basically.
Yeah, which I like.
Georgiou sends Ash off and points out that Lorel's problem is that the male Klingons are not comfortable with her being in charge, and they're assuming that Vok is pulling all the strings.
I love the way she says they're tiny male brains.
Yes, it's good, isn't it?
It's like, yes.
And,
right.
You can't help feeling that probably is a thing, and you can bet that was something that Georgiou had to contend with when she was Emperor as well. So.
And it would also make sense of what happens later when you get Gowron, and they say a woman can't be their fundamentalism is brewing, and it's why everything's going to end up fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, she counsels ditching both Baby and his father as their liabilities, but Lorel is not up for that, but Georgiou says she isn't giving her a choice. After another irritating camera move, this time spinning for no good reason, we find out that Tilly has been hosting a fungus. The one we saw enter her body when she left the Mirror Universe. Excellent, super. We're finding stuff out. It's not just constant mystery after mystery, but they'll do a few mysteries and then reveal what one of them is. I like that. Stamets sucked it out of her, for now. And somehow a huge lump of spore exits her body without leaving any sort of hole, which seems a bit unlikely, but there we are. Saru gets it quarantined in a force field. Yeah, he gets to do something for a change rather than other people doing stuff around him.
But that's a floaty thing as well, isn't it? It's a floaty bubbly thing. They must like their floaty bubbly things.
Yes, maybe. Then, we got an upside down shot, because again, we need to be made to feel sick. We're in the council chamber where Lorel dobs Ash in as a traitor, shows his decapitated head, all John the Baptist styley, and that of her child as well, which she says he tried to execute, but Kolshar defended her and died in the process. Interesting. Yeah. She now claims to be mother to all Klingons. Mother! And it's all very Elizabeth I,
That's exactly what my notes say.
She's going to start dyeing her face white now, using very poisonous chemicals, and go for a ginger wig. Yeah. Anyway... Then we see a ship with swing-down warp engines. Ooh, blimey, Charlie. And it ends up looking very reminiscent of the warp sled from Star Trek The Motion Picture. And it's got some sort of...
sled.
Do you remember where the one thing Spock turns up on that everyone has said, it's a Vulcan ship? And it's not, actually. But anyway, it's a shuttle that's on a warp sled. In this one, when the nacelles swing down, that's the configuration the warp sled is in, and it looks very similar.
Okay.
Yeah, it might just be me making these connections, but hey, it's also got some sort of cloak as well, but I guess Section 31's allowed devious technology like that. The bridge is a redress of Discovery, apparently, because it's on 2 levels, and because Discovery's built higher up, they took out the floor basically and created another level below it.
Oh, okay.
Which is really good. I mean, it looks quite different as a result. So that's excellent. Ash and the baby are on board, and he's going to drop him off at Boraf to become a monk.
And I love that Georgiou's standing there, and you can see her cooing over the baby, and then suddenly she changes.
Yeah, when Ash looks at her, it's like, oh no, I'm not like that at all.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's interesting, this baby being dropped off at Boraf, it kind of feels like that's setting up something for the future as well. Why is Georgiou wearing a Bajoran earring? I suddenly thought. Maybe it's not a Bajoran one, but it's a similar sort of design anyway. And we meet Leyland, who was in a deleted scene from the end of Season 1, who's kind of sort of the captain of the ship, effectively. They've apparently recruited Ash, and I guess this is all set up for the spin-off series. Yeah. So, it's exciting stuff, obviously. Lots of political intrigue. As I say, I'm not that keen on the fact we're back to Klingons again, but maybe this is just a one-off.
I like the fact we're back to Klingons again.
Oh, what a surprise.
I like because they're not weird Klingons now. They make more sense. I like the idea of an Elizabeth I. I also like the idea that when Ash contacts Burnham and says, if Pharrell falls, it all goes to pot, so Section 31 turn up and help ensure that doesn't... I like
working
that.
Behind the shadows.
Yeah.
The only thing that doesn't work is that Ash has heard of Section 31, which doesn't seem plausible, really, but never mind.
Well, he says,
and the fact that they've got badges, which is like, this is us, members of the super secret organisation nobody's supposed to know about. Never mind.
But haven't they all heard of Section 31?
No, all the top brass have.
Right.
So, the Starfleet does know about the existence of Section 31. They just don't advertise its existence because clearly that would place them in trouble with the other major races. So.
It's just that the Discovery, some of them had black
exactly.
badges.
Yeah, that never made any sense either. But
so I think it must make sense that Tyler would have seen the badge and have an idea what it's like.
Anyway, it's kind of like an A plot and a B plot, and I really enjoy. I don't know which one you want to say is which, but the Tilly plot, whichever of the two that is, I really enjoyed. I love the fact that we got to find out who May was, because if she'd hung around for much longer, I think she would have been quite annoying.
Yeah.
And it's not, here's a mystery, and next week here's another mystery, and then they set up a few mysteries and then solve some of them as we go along. Yeah. So we still haven't found out about the Angels. We know a little bit more about Spock, but not really much more, because clearly he's not murdered anybody. I wouldn't have thought. So that's not very Spock-like. So yes, it's like Spock tease all the way through here.
Yeah. What worries me is if the Red Angels first appeared because Burnham, are we going to end up with Deus Ex Burnham?
Don't know.
In other words, Spock knows and understands about them, and somebody somewhere's trying to shush him, but actually it's Burnham they're linked to, not Spock.
Because she's already very central to the... because of starting off the Klingon War, you mean, yeah.
And it worries me a bit that they would that they might be going down that route.
Everything can't all revolve around Burnham,
that's my concern. But that aside, I really like the stuff with Amanda and where she says, "I gave you all the love and affection I wasn't allowed to give Spock." And in terms of her suddenly leaving on whatever, I don't have a problem with the fact that she gives her a kiss and then sort of walks off and says, "I'm going to save him because no one else can." It's because the kiss is kind of her way of saying that she still loves her. She's not going to stop talking to her, but now that she's heard that she did something to Spock. Mm-hmm. But clearly, as far as Amanda is concerned, if Spock has never responded to any of her attempts to reach out, then Burnham is not the right person to try and fix things. She's going to.
I think it was more the way she stormed out the room in a massive grump. It was like, I mean, and understandably as well, she's just found out that one of her children was seriously upset by her adopted child. I mean, I can understand why she's looking upset. I just found the kiss, therefore, didn't fit in with that sort of thing.
No, I think she's feeling a whole mixture of emotions. And she gives her a kiss as a way of saying, stopping it being another rift.
Uh-huh.
And she gives her the kiss, but she walks out and
she
doesn't...
But I could be the one to deal with this.
And I could be the one to deal with this, but also I get bearing in mind she's lived on Vulcan, she's not going to... I don't think she's going to be comfortable with suddenly bursting into tears and wailing and shouting. So it's also
she actually specifically says that she held in her emotions to fit in.
So I think it's a question of walking out, because otherwise she would not be able to contain her emotion. Uh-huh. And I got the impression that Michael understood all of the subtext and everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't getting the impression of it being storming out the way it would be if somebody was, shall we say, completely human. Mm-hmm. I read it differently.
All right.
But I love the fact that she said, we can't get the four of us together. I think they're writing Cyborg and Star Trek 5 out of canon. I think this is brilliant.
I Oh, no.
It wasn't the five
Oh,
of
no.
us. It wasn't the five of us. It was the four of us.
If
That's
event-
Sarek, Amanda,
If
Spock,
events
and
from
Vernon.
if the events from the 09 film can be canon, bloody Star Trek 5 is. I'm sorry.
I like this. I like where this is going.
We should see.
There is
I'm
no
sure,
cyborg.
Oh, there is. I'm sure he'll.
There
turn
is
up.
no cyborg.
We're gonna get it before the end of the season. I know we are.
No.
Right. Well, so yes, as I say, I sort of enjoyed a good half of it, which is, quite often that's the case. You're not going to enjoy all of every episode, and you enjoyed all of it by the sounds of it. So there we are. Let's find out what other people thought.
And we've heard from Doreen, who writes, "This was a very interesting episode and extremely visually interesting. The screens around the bridge attracted my attention this time because they seem so cool. Sorry for reverting to teenage language. I can't find a more appropriate word or phrase."
Well, cool is a word I use a lot, so I wouldn't
Me
worry.
too. Yeah. I'll just need to forget the supposed technical timeline Discovery is supposed to fit into. Yeah, you just have to.
Yeah. They're not going to recreate the Enterprise as it looked in the 60s, are they?
No.
So, yeah.
The Michael and Spock backstory is heating up nicely, although not in the way I thought it was going to. Poor Tilly. But thankfully Saru seems to be managing to get her several second chances.
Yes.
The Klingon intrigue was brilliant, although is someone, perhaps Georgiou, seeming to sell L'Rell, call me mother, up to be some kind of evil dictator? I think maybe Georgiou is trying to set L'Rell up to be her.
Yeah, effectively, yes.
I think so. I think it will take me some time to get my brain around this one, but I look forward to hearing everyone's comments on it. Thank you!
Thank you, Doreen. And we literally just now heard from Andy. So well done, Andy. That's called timing, I believe. Let's see what he has to say. Enjoy the episode, but haven't had time to do proper feedback. Just wanted to address the D7 in the room. It's great to see a proper D7 in Trek, but wait, I hear Peter say, we saw a D7 in the first season when it captured Lorca, and it didn't look anything like a proper D7.
That's pretty much what he said, yes.
Yeah, he knows me well. Well, there is precedence for navies to reuse the name of classes for ships. In the Royal Navy, there were country-class cruisers built before the Second World War, and county-class destroyers built after. And there were Leander-class cruisers in the 1930s and Eland-class frigates in the 1960s, and they were nothing alike. So assuming the D7, I think there may be a typo there, but anyway, so assuming the D7 designation might have some significance, perhaps 7 houses on the High Council, or the Federation might call the Klingon ships something different, or might have made a mistake. Now, except the Klingons refer to it as a D7, don't they, in this? Anyway, I didn't really think anyone would care except Peter, so enjoy looking forward to the next episode. I'm sure there are other people that care about these things. We might find out. You never know.
But if it's got precedent that you can have a so-and-so class that isn't like the same named class, then why can't the Klingons do the same thing?
And there's a PS that literally arrived 5 minutes ago. Bird of Prey. There's like a dozen of different ship classes, all called Bird of Prey in Enterprise Discovery, and from Next Generation onwards, guess Klingons like to reuse class names because reasons. Yeah. Well, it certainly seems that way, doesn't it? And that makes sense of some stuff, so yes. Thank you.
I think it might be their idiom for spaceship.
It's a bit more than that. It's a certain class of spaceship, isn't it? That
Well,
does a
it's
certain,
more than one.
certain
I've got a
battlefield
whole
role.
pull-out of all the different types of birds of prey and all their different names and what sizes they are and how they compare.
Yes, that's a whole another discussion for the Great Derelict, I think. Up and down scaled birds of prey, through the history of Trek. But anyway, thank you, Andy.
Thank you. And we've had an MP3 from Fat Bones.
Well, whoever heard beheaded Klingon baby in their What We'll See in Season 2 sweepstakes, well done. You get all the biscuits. Like a lot of people, like a lot of you probably, I rewatched Season 1 of Discovery prior to the start of Season 2. And in rewatching Season 1 of Discovery prior to watching Season 2, the one thing that jumped out at me that I hadn't noticed before was that all of the schemes that L'Rell tries to put in place, they don't work. None of them work. They all get interrupted or interfered with or otherwise thwarted. When she and Vogue go to the Shenzhou to get the dilithium thing, they come back and Cole's taken over the ship and Vogue gets kicked off. When she tries to defect with Admiral Cornwell, she gets spotted in a corridor by Cole and gets locked away. And the whole plan with Tyler, getting Vogue secreted, which isn't the word that I want, but it's the only word that's coming into my head, into the Federation as a spy / saboteur, That doesn't work because Tyler falls in love with Burnham and they end up in the mirror universe. Nothing works, and she kind of almost fails upwards into being Chancellor. And I was curious to see whether they would maintain that streak in Season 2 or whether they'd do something different. As it turns out, they've kind of inverted it. Whereas in Season 1, her plans get stymied by some outside element. Here, the outside element serves to help her in the form of Starfleet security consultant Philippa Georgiou, who now seemingly has access to all the technology, all the special tools and gizmos that an omnicidal emperor could possibly want, which we'll be seeing more of in the future, I'm sure, as we will the wee baby. I'm next to certain that's going to be used against L'Rell in the future, probably as part of her dethroning, if that's what you do to a Chancellor, or Mother, as she calls herself now. Because we know that obviously she's not going to be Chancellor by the time of Star Trek VI, so something's going to happen between then and now, and probably I would guess this wee baby is going to have something to do with that. I will say actually that I wasn't a fan of the way that the Vogue/Tyler L'Rell storyline ended in Season 1. It seemed a lot like Vogue was basically killed off camera, which isn't the most satisfying way to deal with a character, especially one who was established so early on as being as significant as Vogue was. We were told that by Saru that there was a kind of war going on between Vogue and Tyler, and I think that we needed to see that dramatized in some way, in a sort of John Crichton Harvey kind of way almost, as opposed to seeing it from the outside. And I think almost it needed to be settled between Vogue and Tyler, as opposed to there being any kind of outside intervention from L'Rell, such that Tyler won. There was a conflict between Tyler and Vogue over custody of the body, and Tyler had to win. And we'd still have access to Vogue's memories, but Tyler would be the consciousness that was in charge. That's where I thought that storyline was going. That's not what we got. I wonder still if that's something that might crop back up, if Vogue is entirely gone, if he might come back up every now and then, like like a Harvey in John Crichton's mind. So yeah, I wasn't really a fan of how that story ended. And now those two seem to be on different paths entirely, so I guess we'll just have to see where that takes us. Meanwhile, Tilly gets a truffle removed from her shoulder, and we discover that Burnham did something horrible to Spock to drive him away so as to distance him from her, so that he wouldn't be the target of Vulcan logic extremists. And apparently this has caused many, many years of division between them, although you would think that if you logically explain that I did this for your benefit, then Spock being a logical being, he'd probably get that, but apparently not, it seems. So I should probably stop there. Other than to say that I did listen to last week's episode, and I did listen right to the end, and I was very pleased and very honoured to be given the space formerly occupied by Chief O'Brien's bollocks. So thank you very much. Okay, bye-bye.
I'm glad you appreciated that. And I may well keep it around for a while, I rather suspect, because it does make me laugh.
Yes. You thought what came off of Tilly was a truffle. I thought it was a bogey.
It's a very big one, anyway.
Now, you're going to know this more than I will. You're right, something's got to happen in one sense, because L'Rell isn't Chancellor by the time we get to Star Trek VI.
Yeah, there's plenty of time for that.
How long is that, time-wise?
I can look up the dates and insert them. It's going to take a little while, though.
Because it might potentially help in thinking, because this could potentially play all the way out, and then there is just a new Chancellor because she's dead/old, or it could be that something has to happen in order for that timeline to work. Do you see what I mean? And I've just got no frame of reference, Donnie. I kind of like the idea of L'Rell failing upwards. You're right. None of her schemes worked at all. and this time the outside influence is helping her. But yeah, she's actually not that good, is she? Really?
Well, yeah. She's good at coming up with plans, but
not good at execution.
Unfortunately, well, it's not her fault. The stuff that happens, she could never have predicted.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, I mean, she is supposed to be part of the clan. The Mokai clan is supposed to be all about plots and intrigue and spying and stuff. So it kind of fits. And I think here she's quite strong because she adapts to what happens with Kal Shar, and actually, rather than just giving in and laying down, she actually, she has out with them, which I think is really good. I was impressed with that. Okay, so Discovery, this particular episode, set in 2257, and Star Trek 6, 2293. So we've got some years yet. We've got 40 so years.
Yeah, but she's quite young, so something must happen, or she would be
come on, you know what the Klingons are like. She isn't going to... I would imagine life expectancy of a High Chancellor was about 10 years tops, I would have thought.
Probably. So. Yeah, you probably get through a few before you get to... Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And I do think the babe is seeding. I got the impression we're going to come back to this, aren't we? So I like that. And I like the mention of Boraf, by the way. That ties it nicely into continuity. It does feel a lot more like they're trying harder this season to make it fit. I'm appreciating
which
that.
I like that. Also, I don't think Vok is entirely gone.
No.
I don't think that storyline has played out. I think perhaps either we are made to think it has, or Tyler is trying to convince himself that it has.
And he says in this episode, they're not accepting me as Vok, and it's like, well, you're not Vok, or are you? But he still kind of feels like he's got a dual identity, I think. So I think there's a bit of Vok left in him. Definitely.
I think so. I think it may well rear its head again when whatever happens with the baby happens with the baby.
Possibly
is my guess.
Thank you. Thank you. We've also heard midway on his journey to the other side of the Earth. This is darn impressive. From Llama God.
Lamagad's Lark, Scudday, Noijake. Yeah. Thanks to the miracles of modern technology, I've been able to peruse the latest episode of Discovery. So coming at you live from Dubai here, if I can actually get this damn thing working. So managed to watch episode 3 on the plane, and that was an interesting episode, really, because it's definitely felt more like a middle part of a series. The previous 2 episodes have been slightly self-contained, and so this is definitely left a lot of things dangling at the end. The Tilly storyline, what's happening with the Klingons, and the Red Angels, Spock, and everything. Some interesting revelations, how Michael had played a part in the alienation from Spock, and it wasn't as people had feared that they had some sort of affair together, so that's reassuring to hear, I think. I think probably the most interesting thing that comes from this episode, and I'm really interested to hearing what Org and Andy make of this, is the revelation that Ash may have invented the D7 battlecruiser. So that's interesting. I guess it kind of explains why the design is so different to the previous Klingon cruisers, but, I mean, it's called a D7? I mean, where were the others, the A's to B, C's, and the 1 to 6? It's registry numbers all over again. But otherwise, it was an intriguing episode this week with Giorgio showing up, and the intrigue happening in the Klingon court. I'm really glad to see the Klingons, back to being more like the Klingons that we know and love. Well, some people love, I love them. So, overall, it was a really good episode, and although it's not quite as satisfying as a single standalone watch, it was definitely enough to leave me intrigued to see what the next one's going to be. So, interested to see what happens next week, and eventually, when I return to the correct side of the asteroid, I'll be interested to hear what everyone else has to say about this. Until next time, glory to you and your cast.
Safe travels, sir. Safe travels.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, he was going to. Plenty of Klingons was always going to please Llama God, wasn't it? Yes.
Yay.
And yes, I like the fact that it would appear that it's not an affair that they had with Michael and Spock, because that would have felt icky and wrong. So it's something else.
Something else. I'm glad it's not Ponfar.
Yes, quite.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody who's fed back. We shall be recording the next Discovery next week.
But on Sunday.
Oh, right. Okay. I think you had told me that, and I'd completely forgot about it. So, yes, a little bit more time to get your feedback in for next time. Okay, that's super. So, yes, expect that hopefully sometime on Monday then. Obviously, we've got a Borgcast Galactica, which will be going up next week.
Yep.
Covering 2 more episodes, 2 standalone episodes for the first time. And there's also a YouTube up as well, where we resurrected Toy Joy to cover the Mattel line of Battlestar Galactica toys. So the first of those is up and available now if you just go to Borgcast on YouTube's. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Cheerio, bye.
Bye-bye.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
Find our website at borgcast.libsyn.com.
And we have a YouTube channel as well.
You can find the Borgcast playouts on Spotify for your listening pleasure.
Visit our Tumblr site at borgcast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send emails or MP3s to borgcast@gmail.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or borgcastammo. #Borgcast.
Shut it down!
Off, you bugger. Off.